And we are live. Welcome back to Flannel Panel. We have a whole crew here today, minus one who's having some technical difficulties. So you'll probably see him jumping in a little bit. Corey just went on a fishing trip, so the topic today is going to be fishing.
Yeah,
and
baby.
we have a really special guest, which is we're excited to have here. So why don't you say hey to everybody as we go, and then we'll introduce our special guest and we'll have some fun.
All right. Well, I'm Corey, and we just got done fishing Lake Taneycomo, which is our annual trip to Branson. Conveniently, it's a lake located behind a Bass Pro Shop, which makes things a little bit simpler.
So you just fished in the Bass Pro Shop?
You could. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's frowned upon, but we were there right away early. So
I mean, I think they let kids do it at certain times a day, right?
Yeah,
And you can drop in.
It should be fine.
It's catch and release only, though.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't like it when you try to cook them up right there out by the boats and the where the little pond where the ducks hang out.
And
He
Ty?
just goes there, his rod and reel in the lake, then he can replace it easier.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ty Gallenbeck here, 8 times up outdoors, some fishing stories. So I'm excited.
That'll be good.
And I'm Troy. I don't have a website, but I am a avid fisherman, and we do a lot of fly-in Canadian fishing trips. So I don't know anything about the fly fishing, but I'm anxious to learn something.
Yeah, it'll be fun. And we have a special guest here. I think we all know each other because of this man. And that would be Will Haynes. He is a part of the podcast, which we all became kind of family throughout. And welcome, Will. Will is just gotten right back into fishing, and I really wanted to have him on for this. So it's going to be great.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be here. Looking forward to it.
Excellent flannel, by the way. You look.
Oh, yeah. It was actually missing a button earlier. And so I sewed it back on. Not that it's like a lower one, so not that it would be seen. But my 4-year-old was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm sewing a button on a shirt. Don't worry about
it." That's pretty impressive. All right, we got a couple people in chat. Natalie, as usual, and Cody saying, "What's up, y'all?" I feel wrong saying that, being from the. I feel like one of you guys need to say the y'all.
That's not what people say in Canada. They don't say "What's up, y'all."
What's up, eh?
Hey.
Yeah, that's be more relevant.
How you doing?
Be more on brand.
Mm-hmm. And we're just trying to get Jason. It doesn't look like his camera's on at the moment, so technical difficulties. But Jason, the world, and what's that?
So take the tape off. Peel the tape off, Jason.
Maybe that's.
I'm just so happy it's not me for once.
You just got a fancy new computer, man. Like it's like a fancy gaming computer. So he probably already locked that up, which means he's been on all the websites you're not supposed to be on.
Oh, yeah, could
Hit
be.
torrent.
What's that?
That's the OnlyFans or whatever, right? Which on the fishing trip somebody called Snatch Chat, and I about fell off the boat.
And
there he is.
There he is.
Thank you very much for bringing it up. I locked myself out of my own computer.
Yeah. Whiskey Mutant's pretty stoked, it looks like. If the
Whiskey the Pooh.
If you haven't seen that, that's a lot of fun. Will does Whiskey the Pooh. He has a pretty great imitation, and it's fun. All right, let's get on to some fishing stuff. So Corey, what happened last weekend? You weren't able to join us in the live, so want to give us a rundown?
Yeah, so Lake Taneycomo with the Wamigo boys is they've been doing that trip for like 15 years now. I have only been on for the last 3, so I got invited to replace a brother who passed away. So they've got a limited list. So that was pretty cool to be on the trip. So they all take it fairly serious in a way that's pretty fun, but also like the trip is mostly about everybody hanging out and less about the fish. But Lake Taneycomo is right along the backside of Branson, so it's the dam off of Table Rock Lake runs into the reservoir that's Lake Taneycomo. So it's water off the bottom of Table Rock, so it's always fairly constant temperature and kind of moving a little bit. So cold water, fairly decent movement, means you can fish all year round for trout. So it's brown trout and rainbow trout. There's some bass down at the far end of the lake as well. So there's just a ton of fun, a lot of places to stay. It's cheap to stay in January, so that's when we go because it's significantly cheaper in the off season, and we just take all the clothes we can and bundle up and freeze to death. And we caught a boatload of rainbow trout and had a nice little cookout on the last day. And the guy with the worst equipment caught the biggest fish this year. So that's
Nice.
yeah, good for a decent victory.
Yeah.
The old Zebco 33, right?
That's right. The Boy Scout, Cub Scout special, the one that your grandpa taught you to toss out there with the bobber on it, is what I fish off of. So if it ends up in the lake, it doesn't matter, which is awesome. And I've had pretty good success not buying expensive fishing gear. So I so far refuse to, because I think that would make it not fun for me. Because then if I didn't catch fish, I'll be really pissed. So I can constantly blame my equipment if I'm not catching it. Works out all right.
But you ended up with this rod and reel combo because of a technical difficulty, right?
Yeah, one ended up in the lake. So
Years
right away.
prior.
Like right away. So to the Bass Pro we went, and like $40 maybe maximum later, we were back on the lake. So
Probably the line was already on it when you bought it.
yep,
Yeah.
I just tied a swivel on it and tossed a hard bait out there and trolled. It was fine.
Wait, you
So,
can buy fishing poles that don't have the line already on it?
Sometimes, yeah.
yeah, fancy ones. Yeah, that's in a whole different section of the store. You
Yeah, I
have
don't
to
wanna
have
mess with that.
questions. Yeah, and
That takes an extra knot I don't know.
yeah. I mean, if I could have found one that was a stupid color, had like Iron Man on it or something, I probably would have bought that just for the comedic value. But I went with the one that's all black, so it looks kind of tough-ish.
We did see a
Same
picture
theory.
of go ahead, Jason.
I just say it's the same theory with sunglasses when you're skiing. The more expensive they are, the more likely they're gonna fall off the lift.
100%.
We did see a picture of one that you posted, Corey, of a interesting rod and reel combination that Troy did get a little frustrated with.
Oh yeah, in the back of the so it sleeted on it was on Wednesday. We rolled back in a sleet storm, and that mostly led to drinking. We got pounded by ice, but yeah, Troy was upset because there was a mismatch rod and reel combo in a photo.
Yeah, it leads me to believe that fishing trip's not that serious.
It's not that serious. We take the beer part serious, and the cigar part is fairly competitive, but the fishing part, I mean, there's a lot of pinging back and forth in the text thread if nobody catches anything. I didn't catch anything the first 2 days, so it was all the fish I caught were on Friday, so it was a very small window of catching. But yeah, there's a couple dudes that are for real fish the entire time, and you hope that you don't draw them when we draw cards for who's on what boat in the morning, or at least I hope I don't draw them when we draw cards in the morning.
That's funny. Whiskey Meeting just mentioned in the chat that Dixon just dropped a flannel blanket. So Dixon flannels are kind of our go-to one. So if anybody's cold, that would have been handy at your Taneycomo trip. It looked like
would've.
it was sleet and ice.
Yeah, I think we maxed out. The Saturday was in the low 40s, so that was nice. But yeah, most other days was in the upper 20s, low 30s. So it was a little chilly. It was fine. It's fine. It's fine.
That's fine.
Well,
But-
what was the? Go ahead, Ty.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, Corey's playing this all like coy, like he
Uh,
did.
I caught a
do something-
23-inch rainbow trout. I got a giant effing
There it
fish
is.
while I
All
was
right,
there.
thank you.
Like a massive fish. So yeah, on Friday. So that was the trophy size fish that we jumped up and down and screamed when we finally got in the boat. I thought I had snagged a tree limb when we rolled past because the old rod bent over. Like, there you go, look at that. That's pretty happy.
yeah, look
So
at
yeah,
that.
23-inch trout. That's huge. So it was mad when we were trying to get it in the boat, and I was very concerned that the good Dr. Steve Land was like, if he didn't get that thing in the net, like I think he probably would have jumped in the lake himself, but it got over the side and in. So then a fish that big, like, your options are fairly limited, right? You can taxiderm that thing, but there's no world in which my wife is going to let me put a mounted fish on the wall in my house. So that's not a thing. So we went up to Scotty's, and it's a trout dock, and you can release a 20-inch and above trout there, and they give you a little challenge coin, like here.
Oh,
Over 20 club.
oh, very cool.
Focus. Anyway, so you can keep that, and that's smart marketing for them. Then they put the photos up, and people keep releasing giant trout by their dock, which is also good for business. So yeah, pretty
Yeah, I
sharp.
didn't know you released it.
Yeah, turn it loose. Yeah, that was pretty good. That was we got up to the dock, and then my buddies were like, "Did they measure it?" It's like, no. They yelled, "Oh shit!" and handed me the coin. So that was
Here's how that works. Yeah.
that seems pretty official to me. We measured it in the boat, so it was fine.
The reason why Troy asked is because if you're in the podcasters, you may have seen a picture of him with a real fish.
Yeah, gigantic fish.
Do you guys do any sort of fish pot for the day, like big fish or anything like that, like any kind of contest?
No, but you are subject to the ridicule of your peers if you get skunked, and maybe some fireball shots, something like, it's pretty creative. And then we just play a lot of cards at nighttime. We play pitch a lot, and we play pitch for $1 a game at nighttime. So that's about as hard as it gets. That's a smart idea, but then I think that would lead people to take the fishing really competitively. So,
Oh yeah, we have a daily fish pot. Everybody throws in $1.
yeah.
And so where we're at, we're mostly after walleye, and we catch some northern pike, and so we have a big walleye and big pike of the day, and then a pot for the week. So on a good day, you can win $12.
I like it.
Is that Canadian or
No, U.S. only. That's a strict rule.
$12 Canadian might buy a beer?
No loonies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Will.
Yeah.
Will has just gotten into reacquainted with some fishing, and you're doing some of the opposite. It's not a Zebco reel that you're using. What are you getting into?
Yeah, well, like you said, so last year I hadn't really been fishing since college, and I went and picked up a telescoping, spinner reel that I could throw in the back of my car, and a little pack. And so sometimes if I get off work early, or if on a Saturday afternoon when the kids were napping, I'd go out to the river nearby and just kind of fish there and have fun with it. But before Christmas, I read a book in the fall, and it's called The Optimist. It's by David Coggins, and it's the case for the fly fishing life. And it's kind of almost like there's that each chapter is a different fishing trip. So he goes to Wisconsin for smallmouth, and Montana for cutthroat, and goes to Maine for brook trout, even goes to Canada for salmon. So it's kind of all over, and just kind of a little bit of philosophical, a little bit aesthetic of the fishing. So I was fascinated by that. And I grew up in the Southeast, and fly fishing wasn't very big in Central Florida when I was fishing a lot, or when I'd go visit my granddad and we'd go fishing for crappie or bass with Zebcos in ponds. It was none of the that whole world wasn't near me. So after reading this, and I live in Tennessee, and actually smallmouth fishing, which is really good in Tennessee and Alabama, is huge on fly, but started getting into it, and they stock the rivers in Middle Tennessee in the winter with rainbow trout. And so I thought I'd get into it, and that's what I've been messing with, and going out as much as I can, just hopping in the local river and getting away and being by myself out on the river and getting cold and, throwing a line. So
I love it. And I actually have a picture of one of your prized catches as well.
yeah.
If it shows up here in a second.
Yeah. So to date, that is the only fish I've landed with my fly rod. I believe that's a little shad.
Yeah.
And actually you can see kind of blood on its belly. That's because I just yanked it, and it went through its belly instead of its lip. And so that's how I landed that buddy.
Well, the best part of that, it was already ready for bait. You could throw it out for a bigger fish.
Exactly. So that's the only fish I've landed. They stocked the river this week actually, and I got out there the evening that they stocked it and went to a place. There's nobody there. It was really busy, where like close to where the stocking was, and I went about a mile downstream and hopped in and did a couple casts and hooked into a trout and fought it for about 45 feet all the way up to me. And it was the biggest rush I think I've ever had. And it's the fly rod's bent completely over, fighting it. And I mean, it had to be 50 inches, right? And these stocked trout. But I got it up, and I was so not expecting anything even to bite. One, because I was further downstream. They just stocked it that day. And two, I was just going to cast a couple times before I went home, that I'd left the net back on the canoe launch that was about 10 feet behind me. So I'm literally fighting and trying to reach back and grab the net. And I get just out of fingers wiggling towards the net. And he is about 2 to 3 feet right in front of me. And this trout looks up at me, pauses for a second, and just snaps his head that way, and off comes the fly with him, and he just swims away. So I got to see it, and it was very close, and it almost made it me want to go back more, because had the taste of it, had the fight, which is the fun part, and then just shy of glory of landing my first trout. So we'll try to get back out there maybe this weekend or something.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been fly fishing, but river fishing is my favorite thing. I like, walking the creek or whatnot, and seeing the rainbows and browns, and it's fun. So we have Lake Ontario. So I'm just outside of Toronto. We have Lake Ontario. Like, I can see it in my window. It's probably a kilometer down the street. And so the feeder rivers that go all through it, the salmon spawn, and it's a lot of fun to trek them down. So I don't know if I'd eat them based on Lake Ontario, but yeah. But I enjoy river fishing an awful lot.
How are you coming with your casting with the fly rod, Will?
So I took a class, like a guide. He offered class, and me and a buddy went and just did a casting class. So that was good. I also bought a little they call it like the Practicaster or something, which is basically like a 4-foot rod instead of a 9-foot rod. It has a real line on it, but kind of helps you get the feel of it. But I would say in the past couple weeks, since I've been actually just going down to the river, I get significantly more comfortable with it. I think a lot of it's this comfort level. You can feel, understand what you're supposed to do, but you're going to be, I don't know about you guys, but I was catching mostly trees on backcast for several weeks. So
I can't fly fish at all. It frustrates me so much. Like, my dad lives 15 feet from the number one fly fishing river in Colorado, and we go every year up there, and it drives me nuts. I try it every year. I go back, but it's one of the most frustrating hobbies.
What about it makes it so frustrating?
Your beer
I've
hand is
never
really
tried
busy.
to cast or anything. Yeah. Your what?
Your beer hand is really busy.
Oh, I just heard your hand was
that's
really busy. I
frustrating.
didn't get the beer hand part and wasn't sure where you're going with that.
Yeah. I hate tying knots. That's my least favorite part of fishing, period. And with fly fishing, you're dealing with microscopic line that you can't see. And as Will was saying, you snag, in Colorado where we're at, the riverbanks are lined with willow trees. And so you catch those constantly. And,
Wow.
every time you go forward and you break something off, you're like, oh, there went $6 in the next 30 minutes of my life. So
We're a perfect fit, Ty, because that's the only part I like.
you like the knots?
Tying the knots.
I actually tie flies, but I don't like fishing.
Huh.
I have adult ADD. That's a nightmare. Me on a boat with nothing to do.
I
There's
tell
plenty
you,
to do.
Tie flies. I feel like
I said,
that's not ADD.
well, that's the beauty. You can tunnel vision, and then it's just like everything. I like making stuff, but I don't like actually doing anything.
Oh, you come on our fishing trip. You can be the bartender on the pontoon
in.
boat. You'll be great. You'll be very busy the entire time.
Absolutely, I'm in.
Can you
I'll be
tie this
like
knot
that.
for me as well as the cocktail, please?
Yeah.
I'll
Here,
work
you
on
tie
my
this
old
swivel on,
Western accent.
hand me
I'll be
a
like the chuck wagon master, the old Henri Coot that makes your dinner.
Yeah, we'll just call you Curly. It'll be fine.
Will you
Bonanza.
tie this on while I just tie one off for
Exactly.
the rest of the day?
Ah.
So,
So this fishing topic, we thought there was going to be a ton of jump claps. So if you're watching or watching after the fact, throw the jump claps in if you hear one.
I was really good.
in the
I
comments.
waited in Corey's. I was going to ask Corey how many brown trout jokes are there in a common
A
weekend.
lot of brown trout jokes happen in Taneycomo. So I make the brown trout jokes, and then people aren't sure if I really need them to take the boat back, or if I was like, yeah, we got a brown trout release program coming up, and they're like, what does that mean? I was like, it means what you think it means. It means we need to head back to. He's a coffee and eggs are hitting bottom, champ. That's what that means.
Did you get a coin for that one?
No, I think it was a bit under 20 inches. Yeah, and I think the guys
You're
at Scotty's would
welcome,
be pretty
Ian.
pissed if you tried to catch and release one outside of the dock. So,
Anything I can do to class this place up, I'm in.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we caught 2 coin fish last week. So I caught one, and Hoopy caught a brown that was over 20 and coined it, and that was 100% where all my jokes went. Was like, well, that's not the biggest brown trout that Hoopy caught and released during the trip. Yeah, it was good. It's fine. It's fine. We're all adults, Jason. Very adult oriented humor.
I was like, as Troy said earlier, we can tell how serious your fishing trip is because, man, if you're on one of our boats and at Taylor and you have a brown trout issue, you just better hang your ass off.
Hang it over the side. Yeah.
Yep. No one's taking you back to shore right now.
The Taneycomo, Lake Taneycomo, where we fish at, it's the area where we fish at. It's you can make it back should you need to. So should an emergency situation, emergency situation. There's a lot of offloading of 3-2 and occasional boat splash that occurs, but that's just part of fishing. So.
That's normal.
Well, if we ever get any water again this year, we should make a plan, because one of the greatest fishing trips on this planet, and Ty can attest, is go down south to Lake Powell and do some striper bass fishing. And standing offer, we should do it. I'm telling you. Red rocks, the whole nine, and the fish and beautiful.
Sounds good.
That does sound good.
I agree 100%. Second weekend in September.
Boom.
I'll be there. So I took my wife down this year for the first time, her first time ever being there. And I took my dad right before COVID hit, or right after COVID hit. I don't know, somewhere around there, 2019, 2020. My dad gave me old 1970s pontoon boat that I tore down to the studs and rebuilt and put a new engine on. And so part of the goal with that was to take it to be able to go to Lake Powell striper fishing, because it's like the greatest fishing I've ever done. And so we did that in September this year and went down there for the first time, and we only almost died once, and my wife said she would go back again. So I feel like that's a win.
That's a win-win
That's
overall. So yeah. But it is.
Do you want me to show this photo?
Yeah, you can show that. I sent Ian a picture so this was, that was one of the only like smallmouth or largemouth bass that we caught while we were there. We got out one morning and kind of tootled around in the main channel. Most of the time we just kind of stayed in our little cove that we were in. But it was, if you've never been striper fishing, like we showed up at our campsite at like 9 a.m., park the boat. And when they talk about striper boils, like it literally looks like the water is boiling. Like fish just start jumping everywhere. And they're all chasing those little shad that Will caught on his fly rod. And so you can throw just about anything silver in the water and you're immediately hooked into these 18 to 30 inch,
Wow.
pissed off bass. And so when we got there, our first morning, we pulled in, parked our boat, got the tent unloaded, and the water just erupted. And so I'm like handing my wife a fishing pole, like just start casting, like throw this right now. Like we're standing there. And for the next 4 days, like I didn't set an alarm to wake up in the morning. I just waited until I heard the water start bubbling. I literally would roll out of bed on the boat, grab the rod, start catching stripers first thing in the morning.
That's
It
awesome.
was glorious. So yeah, it's life-changing fishing, and
It really
I've
is.
done a lot of fishing, but it's
Because that's
a whole
catching.
nother world.
Ty. That's a whole lot of catching. Not a whole lot of fishing. And that's two different programs. It's
There it
the
is.
wife loves it when you take them catching, take them
Well-
fishing for 3 days when nothing happens, and see if that that's solid strategy.
Well, she was very content to sit with her lawn chair halfway in the water and
Watch.
drink, fruity beverages and sit in the shade for 3 days on a beach. So there is that part of it too.
That would be, and the pontoon boat made it.
It got dicey at one point. so at Lake Powell, like there's literally different climates depending on where you're at because of how big it is. And so we went out one night and in the afternoon and kind of went up and went in this new finger that we went clear back in. And like Jason was talking about, I mean, that's
There's
fine.
one.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry.
I earned that one. There's 60, 80 foot tall red rock cliffs. Like it's just beautiful. And we're not catching anything, but we're just cruising around. It's, perfect temperature. The sun starts to go down. So we're like, oh, we should probably get back to our campsite before the sun goes away. And we come around the corner out of that little finger back into the main channel. And there was like 3 foot swells of water. In my little 16-foot pontoon boat, we had we redneck this thing. So we had this like shade canopy on it that was just like a lawn shade canopy.
Like a pop-up
that you set up.
canopy?
Yeah.
Yeah, baby.
And so we just had that on there because right before we left, my wife had gotten like news that she had like skin cancer. And so we're like, oh, shade's going to be a priority. So we had this thing on there. We came around the corner and that thing about took off. So we both grab it. We're holding it down. We have to pull into another little cove, take it down. And then we're out there like going through these waves, getting splashed, all this stuff. So the next day is the day we leave. And I go to get the truck to load the boat. And I go get the truck. And as I'm coming back down, I see my wife on the boat out there. And I mean, the pontoon boat, like the back of the pontoons is basically underwater. I'm like, oh, we took on a little bit of water yesterday. So we made it back. But yeah, I bet I dumped 15 gallons of water out of each pontoon when I got back and had to fix some holes. So, but she still said she'd go back. So we're good.
Yeah.
It's good. And every good fishing story, it ends with, but did you die? And the answer was no. So we're good.
And the boat still floats. So
Boom.
yeah.
Victory.
Well, whatever floats your boat.
Hey,
Those big fingers.
oh,
Big fingers.
Well, and coves.
All right.
Tees. So Tees heads up this way, up northern Ontario, I guess it is, and does some pretty remote fishing there. What are you going after?
Yeah, we're mostly after walleye, and it is very remote. I think from here it's 850 miles maybe. So we drive like 16 hours, and then we get there, and we have a half-hour flight, water plane,
Bush
and
plane.
from
Yeah.
there, yeah, a bush plane, and then from there it's a 3-hour boat ride to our cabin. So we don't see anybody for a week, and there's no electricity. We just have propane lights and refrigerators and stuff, but it's the most pristine, beautiful fishing I've ever seen. There's just moose and bear and beaver.
Heyo.
Hey, it's Canada.
Do you have to
You gotta
ship
have-
that in,
you
or is it
gotta have
available
the
there
beaver.
No,
at the
it's
site?
all organic.
El Natural.
Well,
But that reminds me, I do have a story similar to Ty's
school.
where I had a little water mishap. This is several years ago, but we were fishing, and I had a buddy with me who had never been on the trip before, and we were in a small bay, and my brother and another friend were in another boat in there, and we were just wanting to kind of like cast the bank, and these are just 14-foot aluminum boats, with 9.9 motors on. They're very small, and I kind of wanted to like troll, but we don't have a trolling motor. So my brother's like, well, what you do? He's yelling at me across he's 100 yards away, but he's like, you stand on the seat and you steer with your foot while you idle down the bank, So
I would
I'm
pay
like,
to see that.
I'm like, hey, it's not my first trip to town. So I get up on the boat seat, and I don't know if you know anything about physics, but when a guy my size gets on top of a boat seat in a boat that small, our center of bounce wasn't right. So we're going down the bank, and the first time I tried to reach back and turn the rudder with my foot, I kicked the motor wide open. So I just jump off the back and into the water, and I must have went about 12 foot down, but I'm laughing, swimming up. I still have my pole in my hand. And
And
Self clap.
and I'm thinking Tom, my buddy, I'm like, he's got to be mad. Well, I come up because he's sitting in the front of the boat. He's not gonna know what happened, but I break the surface, and Tom's in the water too. I don't know what happened, but that boat just was doing donuts wide open, and we're both swimming. And here comes the boat. You gotta get out of the way. So that went on for about a minute until my brother and my other buddy got their boat across the lake, and they actually had to broadside our boat and then shut her down. We both had to swim to shore and get back in the boat.
So
that's a good story.
that's a
That's
fantastic
the last time Tom
story.
ever came on that trip.
The heyo.
That kind of trip, Will.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, it was
Well, you
pretty
said there were
exciting.
bears up there too.
So it's really- the Taneycomo crew, I do not have one, but there are 3 guys on the crew that have submarine dive team like style shirts, and those are the 3 guys that have been in Lake Taneycomo in January. So if you go in the lake, you get issued like a dive team shirt, and you're able to wear it on future trips. So I think I'm happy to have avoided the dive team shirt, but you should totally steal that idea for anybody who
That's a
goes
good
on the
idea.
drink.
Yeah. Were they going after your rod?
Yes.
All right.
Troy, is
That's
it
great.
not freezing?
No, we're
When
up
you're
there
up
in
there?
July. It's like
Oh, it's
85,
great.
90 degrees.
Like a
Yeah.
balmy 32 in July up there.
No,
yeah, I
it's
was like,
great.
what's the
it's
water
beautiful.
temp?
32 Celsius.
No,
Yeah.
like 72,
Hot.
73.
Dang,
Yeah, it's
I'm
beautiful.
learning new things.
The worst thing is the mosquitoes and black flies occasionally.
That's more than the worst thing. They're terrible. It's like swarms of them. But
We
yeah.
usually miss the black flies, but the mosquitoes are still serious.
Yeah, that never ends till the cold weather shows up. For sure. Yeah, that's a cool spot. I've driven up there a few times, and it's if you're ever in Northern Ontario doing that drive, keep going. You just like go all the way across or around Lake Superior. It's a beautiful thing. Like not in mountains like Ty's used to, but these hills are pretty serious, and it gets some really beautiful views. So
Yeah, it's all
Definitely.
granite on one side. And what is it, Lake Superior, Michigan?
Lake
I don't know what
Superior.
yeah,
Lake
on the-
Superior, yeah.
you so just follow the lake all the way up, and it's beautiful.
I've done that in a snowstorm. That was not fun. It's like a 25-foot cliff beside you, and yeah, not great.
Yeah.
But in the summer, beautiful. Mhm.
Canadians aren't big on guardrails.
I guess I don't know what to say.
It's because they got free insurance. It'll be fine.
Well, I mean, there's a tree every 2 feet, so I guess
Sorry
they
about that.
Yeah, pretty. It's like, well, good luck.
It'll be fine. It's
Sorry, not sorry.
So up in Canada, speaking of Canada, it's something that's called the Bell Let's Talk Day. So Bell is one of the telecom providers up here, like telephone, now internet and all that. But they promoted mental health for the past probably 10 years now, and on January 26th every year they do a 5-cent donation for every hashtag Bell Let's Talk or video watched about this and all that kind of stuff. And I was thinking, I was like, oh, this is a pretty cool topic, and I think it really relates to fishing, because we're all, for those of us that do go fishing, do it for a reason, like we're not just out there to some people do want the food and whatnot, but I think for the most of it, it's the enjoyment and maybe even the relaxation. But I think that kind of leads into that mental health aspect to it. Like for me to just sit there and kind of, be out in nature or whatnot. And what do you guys think of that? Do you have any thoughts about how that helps your mental state or puts you in a better state?
Well,
I know. Yeah,
no, I'll
I know.
jump in
Will.
because
Yeah.
I was going to let others have a chance first, but we talked a little bit about it last night on Virtual Bar Night. Kind of at the end of the evening, there was just a few of us left on, and that's part of the reason why, like I said, I grew up fishing as a kid. Everything from golf course ponds in my neighborhood to little creeks and streams, the St. Johns River in Florida, and ponds and rivers in Alabama with my granddad. And so that was always a fun part of my childhood. But we'd go fishing in college a little bit, just mainly to get out and drink beer. But I hadn't really done it in my post college adult life. I mean, I don't even know at all if I had. So last year I was looking for something else to kind of just decompress some. And I'm like, that we've got a nice little small river that cuts right through town and a few minutes away from my house that I can go past it on the way home from work. And I'm just going to go grab a cheap, something I can keep in the back of my car. So if I ever have a chance, I can just go be outside. And even if I don't catch anything, it's just nice to be able to reflect, decompress, and throw a line at the water. And then so I started doing that actually for that express purpose, bringing it back up. And then we talked a little bit about, I read the book and started getting into the fly fishing is kind of a interesting thing, but there's something about the ritual to it for me, that there's a process, there's a rhythm to it. There's even if it is an active thing. So even if you're not catching anything, you're moving a lot. Because you make a cast, it drifts down, you pick it back up, you cast again, you can wade through the water and see a different part of the river. So to me, that was, it also played into it as well. Why it was kind of interesting and fascinating to me, is that it was another activity. It could an excuse to be outside and to, be in a sense isolated, but in a good way, to decompress and think through the day or life or whatever and have some fun. So, I mean, that literally is the reason that I started getting back into it.
Yeah, and that says mindfulness for sure. I think the outdoor air is something that's probably pretty good for our mental state too, especially given the last couple of years being COVID. I know I've been in Ontario, we've been locked down a lot. So just even going outside is something good. So getting outside by the water, all that would definitely help that. So
Yeah, we go fishing. I mean, I fish when I go fish with the Wamigo crew for the most part. And, I think the older you get, the more valuable really good friends are as an adult. You know what I mean? I think it's harder to find them. It's certainly harder to keep them. And we're all getting to our crew's all in their mid to late 40s, early 50s. So, we're not handing out wedding cards and baby born cards now. It's starting to be like sympathy cards and crazy BS like
So
that.
they're in their prime.
Yeah, right. Something like that.
Right, Troy?
Yep.
So, when that shifts, I think having, like I said, especially for guys, having good adult friends is sometimes tough. So that's why it's valuable. I mean, I could have retired from fishing Friday at 4 p.m. And never caught. I probably won't catch another fish like that at Lake Taneycomo, and that's okay, because it was it was a good trip with all the boys, and everybody had a great time. And it's so much about just making sure that that crew's taken care of, and they all take care of each other as a result. And it's kind of a big deal. So yeah, that's the part that makes the most part of it for me. So having good brothers and good times a big deal.
That's kind of the way our trip is. Ours used to be just a guy's trip, but now it's more of a family trip. It's my dad and uncle and brother and a couple cousins, and the happiest time of my whole year is the 2-hour boat ride from the time I get off the plane to we get to camp. And it's about 9 beers is what it takes to get to the cabin. But you just feel the stress, is gone as soon as you get on the water. You're happy to finally have gotten there, and it's it's
Rejuvenating.
It's my happy place. Yep.
Yeah.
No,
It was
that's cool.
cold as heck on Thursday, like 22 degrees. We didn't catch jack and or shit on Thursday, and it didn't matter. I was on a boat with 3 buddies, and we had lines in the water, and it just didn't matter. That's what it was getting close to the end of the day, and one of the other dudes was like, "Well, we didn't catch anything," and I was like, "I'm not at work today, so it's still a fantastic Thursday. We have won on Thursday, so it was good."
I think you had a beer and a cigar going too, and
That's
you
right.
might have
I
seen a
maxed
picture
out.
of that.
So
Yeah.
I limited on Thursday on beers.
Yeah, I giggled every time I saw a picture of you guys all bundled up. I'm like, that's crazy. But I realize this, I know it's it's more about hanging with the guys than the fishing at that point, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we have an annual trip that, I mean, in the last few years, as Corey and I have talked about, his trip is definitely similar, that we've been going on for 15 years here in Colorado. And hopefully there's a few guys from this group that are going to show up this year for it. But my dad has managed a dam here in Colorado. He is the dam manager.
Yes.
And so he's got this
That
bunkhouse.
damn manager.
I don't know. He's got this bunkhouse that's, just outside his front door that he opens up to us one weekend a year. And it's, in October, but it's become this sacred weekend. Like all of our wives that go on this trip, like, they know religiously, like, the first weekend in October is like, that's the first thing that goes in the calendar. Like, January 1st hits, we're all writing it down, blocking it out, all those kind of things, because of that mental break and that, that time away and that connection that you get. It sustains us beforehand, like being excited about, oh, this is coming. And then it sustains you afterwards for a while, because you finally feel rested and kind of at peace again, I feel like.
For sure. Yeah. So those watching or those watching later, I challenge you to maybe grab a fishing rod or something. Maybe it's just tying flies like Jason does, whatever it is that can kind of calm yourself or put you in a good frame of mind. If you're struggling with some of that, would totally be worth it. So given the day up here, I thought we'd bring that up and kind of chat about that, because I think it's really needed right now in our world.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that's going to be something that the Flannel panel kind of tacks into some of the topics, is like, hey, what's a challenge that we could do, or what's something that's a real world thing happening that we could kind of discuss a little bit, maybe midstream or whatever. So as we go on, if you have a topic, throw it in the comments and whatnot, but that'll be fun. What's the wildest fishing story you have?
I think we heard a couple.
No, that was about fish, but like, well, I guess the boat with Ty. That was pretty
I-
wild.
I have a weird one when with my kids when they were younger. We did go fishing a lot. That's the best way to spend the weekend. The best economical way to keep 3 kids happy is take them out on the lake. But I did catch one thing that I guarantee you that probably none of y'all have caught, and I got me a trophy chipmunk.
No, I wasn't sure where this is
Wait,
going.
what?
And
Yeah.
no, I did. So the kids were
COVID?
fishing.
Like,
The kids were all fishing,
Yeah.
and my daughter was having problems. So I set my pole down to help her get her
Yeah.
get
Grabbed
her
your
rig
rod.
set up. And as I'm helping her, my rod and reel go whizzing off into the forest. I run up and I step on it, grab it, and I reel it in. And I was using cheese bait because it was on the lake. And this chipmunk, big old chipmunk, grabbed a hold of that cheese hook and it lodged it in there, which is bad enough. But luckily I had, the
Shotgun.
gloves and the hook. Yeah, I should have.
It was the
Well,
rabies that was the
To
worst
be
part.
honest, PETA, that was my first. That was my first. But my daughter's sitting there, her eyes are big. And if you've ever
Right.
heard a chipmunk cry, it's the saddest thing on the planet.
Oh,
Yeah.
And so I got my gloves, and it took me a while, but
To stomp it to death, I bet.
yeah. No, it was traumatic for my daughter because I am, this thing's squirreling around and screaming and peeing on me and everything, and I finally snipped the barbs and got the hook out, and it ran off. But it was quite interesting.
You're a pretty good dad, Jason, because there's 100% chance I would have just cut the line. And just
Yeah.
called it a day.
Honestly, if my daughter wasn't
It's
there,
like-
I probably would have. But
Cast it right
You
in the
know.
lake.
Yeah, or use it as bait.
Northern
Yeah.
will love it.
What kind of
That have
trophy bass you
daughters.
can land?
yeah,
Should see
anybody
the
here with a
muskie we
daughter
got with
knows.
this.
Yeah, that look on your daughter's face, like you just have to fix things.
That's right. Save it, Dad.
I was gonna say we've caught live mice, and at Taylor, and definitely put them on a hook and thrown them out there. And
Yeah, mice-
what
mice
may
will
or
catch
may
fish.
it may or may not be a legal section of the river to fish
Uh-huh.
in, but yeah, there's some monsters. So
No, nice.
And what type is that would go after the mice? What type of fish?
rainbows and browns
All
actually.
of them.
where
Really?
this is
Brown
at.
trout will eat just
Yeah.
about anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, this is not my craziest story, but this is a good 8 times up outdoors pitch. So we'll go with it. So the section of river where my dad lives is like blocked off, so you can't fish directly in front of the cabin. But just down from it is what they call gold medal waters in Colorado. I don't know who else has that, but it's all catch and release. You can only use artificial lures and flies. Like there's no bait fishing or anything. And so it just breeds these monster rainbows and browns. Well, above the line where you can't fish, there's like a spillway pond and all of this stuff. And there's easily 40-inch plus rainbows and browns through this whole section of river. And they are just unbelievable. So that's something to look. We take Polaroid glasses and go out there and look at them all and dream about what it would be like to catch those. And ask my
Polaroid
dad-
glasses?
polarized. Did I say
I was
Polaroid?
like,
I
you got
may
a
have.
phantom camera glass?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Every year we ask my dad, like, how much is the fine if we get caught fishing here? And as we get older, it becomes more and more like, yeah,
Feasible.
that seems like it may be worth it.
Seems
That
like it
may
might
be
be worth
worth it now. Yeah. So
When I was a kid at a lake, I was headed to a spot to start fishing, and I got caught by the kid in front of me that took his thumb off the Zebco in his back cast
Oh.
instead of forward, and all of a sudden
no.
hooked me right there in the neck.
Oh,
Got me. And he was
of
he was-
all
he's like,
places.
Don't
Oh,
you reel
so-
me in.
It wasn't too bad, but I'd say it's probably the craziest fishing
No.
story is getting
Yeah.
caught myself. So
Yeah, so we've caught a will, we've caught a chipmunk.
basically
Yeah.
the same thing. I have chipmunk cheeks, so
Yeah.
basically
Yeah.
the same thing.
Took the boys fishing last summer. Yeah, that was the same thing. Cody caught a fish. He's my oldest, and he has a hold of fish, and he had set both treble hooks by like miracle, one in the mouth and the other one underneath the gills of the fish. So I'm trying to pliers everything loose, and he's got a hold of the fish. I'm like, just don't let go of it when it thrashes. And of course it thrashes, and what does he do? He lets go of it, and it set a treble hook so deep into my finger that the wife is over there trying not to throw up. I was like, well, this one's deep enough. It's got to go through and
The
out,
other way.
Mhm.
clip it,
Ugh.
and then pull it the rest of the way out. And she just about passed out dead. She's like, you're going to do what? And I was like, well, that or we're going to an emergency room with this in it right now because it's not coming back out.
Yeah.
So yeah, she was shocked that was an option. I was like, yep, you just hook it the rest of the way through and then clip the end off with the pliers and then pull it back out the other way. She's like, so, it'll be fine. It's fine. My youngest, by the way, has not returned to fishing
Done with it.
ever since. Julipa Batman was like, nope, I'm out. This sucks. I'll just stick to video games. This is perfectly fine.
Yeah, you want to go fishing? Here's your controller. There we
Yeah.
go.
I'd say my favorite story is we've been doing this trip since my dad, the first year he went was in 77, and my first trip was in 1979. So I've gone almost every year except for maybe 5 in that span. But in 2016, I talked my wife into going, and like it was the whole family, my brother's whole family and my whole family. So I had my son's gone for years. He's gone like 12 times now, but it's my daughter's first trip and my wife's first trip. And actually, the guys went our normal week and drove home, got home on Sunday. And that following Friday, we loaded up again and went back with the girls. So it was, another 800 miles back. But anyway, so we're up there. And the first day, I have my wife and daughter in the boat with me, and my son's fishing with my dad. But the second day, my son wanted to take my daughter with. They wanted to take a boat, and then my wife and I were fishing. And so I said to Allie, who's my daughter, I said, you're probably not going to catch anything today because Andy has never captained a boat before. He doesn't know where to fish. He doesn't know how to tie a knot. You're going to have a terrible day, but just try to enjoy the scenery. So we take off down the river, and they just start fishing right there beside the cabin. And she immediately catches a walleye bigger than anything I've ever caught in 37 trips, And next thing you know, they're coming by with this 10-pounder on a stringer. Like, look at this. And they're like, well, so that was like I say, it was the second day. So it was kind of the perfect kickoff to the week.
That's great.
I think
There you go.
yeah, our 15 years at Taylor all started
I was just using it to keep an extra one cold.
That's perfect.
that just made my day.
If you didn't catch that, what was that, Corey?
little PBR, and
My
that's
little
right.
8X up. 8 times
I just
up
got mine
outdoors
today.
mug,
I'm excited.
Yeti. Conveniently, a PBR can fits right in there. So
That's
Well, it's
perfect.
funny you've got that 8 times up because I just polished off
Oh,
an old
Oh,
Wow.
gallon
that
deck
lasts long.
special. There we go.
there it
Okay.
is.
I'm drinking it out of
Nice.
these fly cups that my wife gave me for Christmas.
Oh, those are
cool.
Oh,
There you go.
cool.
Glasses, yeah. So
That's awesome.
themed out for the
All right.
evening.
That's right.
So, Ty, you want to do any promo for 8 times up?
Well, I'll tell this story because I feel like so far I've kind of undersold 8 times up with all the pictures I've shown as all these tiny fish, and I can't let Tease just walk away with a big fish story. So I was like, all right, I got to end with like a big fish story. And our whole fishing trip at Taylor started 15 years ago or whatever it was at this point. We went up there. It was just me, Chris, who does 8 times up with me, and another buddy. And we were out fishing in the evening, just using these little spinners off the shore. We didn't have boats or anything back then. And we watched this fish swim by that was easily 30 inches plus. And at the lake we were at, we were like, man, for something to be that close to shore, it has to be a pike. And we're like, but there's not usually pike down on this end where we were at, and didn't look right or anything. And so we kind of went back and went to my dad's house and looked it up, and we're like, I think that had to be a lake trout, or a Mackinaw, depending on where you're at in the world. And so we're like, man, maybe that's what it was. And so finished up dinner and went back up to the lake. And now the sun's just getting ready to set. We're out there and we're fishing. And I had decided I was going to catch one of those Mackinaw, the lake trout. And so I rigged up this big thing with sucker meat and all this stuff and proceeded to catch rocks for about the next 30 minutes and then just gave up. And I was like, well, I'm going to catch a buzz at least. And sat down next to a fire and was sitting there. And Chris is out there fishing with his little spinner, this little trout lure that he'd been catching all these stock rainbows for like an hour and just talking shit the whole time. Like, and so finally he's reeling it in and you see him kind of hook something and then it breaks off. And we're like, oh, you finally got snagged. Like, that's what you get. He's like, no, like, that was one of the big ones, guys. And we're like, shut up. Like, whatever. It was not. And he's like, no, seriously, I think it was. And so by this point it had gotten dark. And so we took a spotlight out and shined it on the water. And I kid you guys not, like, it was 300 yards, probably 25 yards deep of 30-inch plus lake trout just up by the shore. It was spawning season for them. And so we ended up hooking lines up with, some different tackle and some glow in the dark stuff and started casting in that night. Did you get that picture, Ian?
Yeah.
Show this off.
Yeah.
So this is why we go back every year now, is this has become like
Oh my goodness.
the mission that we're on. And so, yeah, that was out there. It's probably 11 p.m. or whatever, out there fishing for those lake trout. And they're not really eating this time of year. So it's super tough fishing and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, definitely something at this point, we put them all back and let those suckers, like Corey was talking about, live to be trophy fish for other people.
Monsters.
But I've never seen anything like it. And I don't think in 15 years we've seen anything quite to that level. But we've managed, it's about once every 3 years. We're able to get every guy in the group to catch one of those over 30 inches, the largest being 41 so far. And so it's like, that's kind of the craziest trip or story that we have for sure.
That's awesome. And quite the catch.
Yeah.
Quite the
I
catch.
just can't let T's win that.
That's a
easily.
mic drop. Yeah, no, you win.
I don't know.
Shad back up.
Yeah.
Y'all just don't realize how big my hands are.
Yeah,
all.
that's right. With a very large hand.
T's, how big was that pike?
Well, I didn't have a scale, but he was 42 inches, so whatever that would
42.
be. Yeah.
Big.
Yeah, I was like, that thing is huge.
Where we go doesn't get fished much anymore because it's so remote, and the owner doesn't really rent the cabin that much anymore. But we're getting where we're catching we might catch 2 or 3 40 inches in a week. They're getting to be more common. Used to be we'd never see one that big. So
Wow.
Oh, that's cool. Nat has a story. When I was at Camp DeSoto, I don't know why the mouse is. Anyways, when I was at Camp DeSoto as a girl, we always after lunch took rolls out to the pond to feed the bremfish. Is that what that is?
Yeah.
At the end of the summer, there was a film of butter on the top of the pond. That's awesome.
That's Mississippi summer camp right there.
Yeah.
Do y'all call panfish brim? Does
no,
anyone call it? So that must be a southern thing.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
maybe,
that's bluegill and shell crackers, everything. We call them brim.
Really?
But I mean, their panfish is probably the more universally known term. But yeah, brim is must be a southern thing.
I've heard of it, but I thought it was just a specific kind of fish. I didn't know it was a
No,
general.
we call all panfish brim.
I think when we get done at Lake Taneycomo for our 5 days, there's not butter on the top, but there's definitely like a haze of PBR, Miller Lite and Bud Light at least around the Blue Haven Resort where we camp. So
That's runoff, though, isn't it?
it could be.
Secondhand.
Allegedly. Allegedly.
Oh God, I gotta.
Thank you.
Nice. What's up, Dustin?
Oh, yeah.
All right, Dustin's here.
Yeah. So I got to throw this out there because enough guys in this group know Chuck, another guy that we met thanks to Will and the podcast guys. He's a special forces guy here in Colorado, and I talked him into coming on this fishing trip we go on every year a couple of years ago. So he's come the last 2 years. Well, the first year we're out there, we had rented a big pontoon boat, and Chuck was on my boat, and then Chris is on his other boat with another couple guys, but most of the guys are on our boat. And it's the first day of duck hunting season where we're at. And so from where we're at in the lake, all of a sudden you just hear shotgun shells going off like crazy. Like it is just boom, 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 boom. And then all of a sudden it goes quiet, and you hear Chris from across the lake go, "Chuck, it's just duck hunting season. You don't need to kill anybody." So to this day, like now, anytime a shell goes off while we're up there, we're like, "It's okay, Chuck. Like, just, you're fine." So,
Little did they know those duck hunters were in a world of hurt if someone.
yeah. Anytime Chuck's on my boat, I'm ready to pick a fight. Like I'll be a pirate in a second. Like let's go.
Right. He doesn't even need a shotgun. He could have killed them all with a pair of fishing pliers. So they wouldn't have even seen it coming.
Yeah, that would
teacup
arm.
Yeah. Yep. Well, we're at that hour mark. Let's close this thing up. The next few topics are going to be fun too. We got a few things going on with a few other people. Will, thank you so much for joining in on this.
Thank you for inviting me, guys.
Loved hearing all that about fishing, and you just want to throw it where people can find you. I'm pretty sure everybody watching this right now will already know you, but if they found you for the flannel reasons, then throw it out there.
Yeah, just at the podcast or youtube.com/the podcast. Just about everywhere. So that's it. We'll drink whiskey.
If you have any interest in whiskey or bourbon, go follow the podcast 100%.
Amen.
I mean, that they do things right. When you talk about community and good people, that this doesn't happen without them first. And so I think it's good to, throw that out there. But I've found in the last week, like all these new people that are just getting into bourbon and whiskey. And that's the first place I always send them is to you guys over at the podcast, and tell them to start at the beginning so you don't have to deal with pretentious grease. Back when he was likable, but yeah, definitely go check them out.
Yeah, and to spin that back to mental health a little bit, that community factor has been pretty solid for us over the past couple of years. Like, I think I brought COVID back from Whiskey Weekend Batch 2 to Canada, but it was
patient zero.
Allegedly.
But beyond that, like this group here, and we have an extended group as well, and the podcasters community on Facebook and whatnot have been lifelines for a lot of us, I would say, and I'm super thankful for that. So yeah, it's family if you want to go Fast and the Furious on it. Yeah, family. Corey, where can we find you at?
Easiest is usually on Instagram at CD_Reeves. It's usually bourbon stuff on there. I paint my garage when I'm not catching gigantic rainbow trout in Missouri. Keep it busy and firing up. I did morning radio for a really long time, and I'll start doing morning radio again next week. So it'll be a whole lot of getting up early, but it's all right. We'll keep it fun. Should be good.
That's fun. Can we listen to you on? Is there a link? Can you post?
Yeah, b1047.com. So I'll put it in the bio of my Instagram. So it'll be good. Be 6 to 10 Central Time, Monday through Friday.
Awesome. Ty, you're 8 times up. Do you want to? Where can we find you at?
Yeah, 8 times up outdoors on Instagram and the YouTubes and all that stuff. We are absolutely horrible at putting out YouTube content at this point, but our Patreon swag is above average, I would say, for the most part. So follow us there at 8 times up outdoors. Get some
On
fishing
point, the best
stuff there.
Great swag.
Yeah, we at this point that's all we deliver, so we might as well just.
It's a
go above
real
and
Yeti
beyond.
cup. It's not an Orca or an Arctic or what. It's a real GD Yeti cup. So
Which I will never work with them again. So I'm not trying to get sponsored by them. So I'm okay saying that they were a nightmare, but they are legit cups and they're awesome. But
well, they're now limited edition. So there you go.
They look really beautiful. I would really like to try one, but Nat already stole it when it got here, so I have no idea where it is.
Nice.
That's awesome.
And Jason, we can find you at?
I'm on just Instagram of the World of My Glass. I just take random stupid pictures and brag about my friends and here the Flannel panel. So
yeah, that's great. And Mayor McTease, or what's the nickname this week?
Mayor McTease.
You can find me here in my basement most nights, but if you're
in Gesundheit, Ohio.
Yep. I can pitch if you barnight.com, we're going to do another whiskey competition tomorrow night. If you want to see
tomorrow night.
4 guys, we're drinking or competition is worst whiskey we own, so that'll be a fun one.
Oh,
maybe fun for us, not so much for you. Yeah, that'll be fun. That's tomorrow night at 9, or what time are you guys?
Yeah, 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock.
And I think it's barnight.com.
Right, barnight.com.
Awesome. And you can find us at. Well, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, which a bunch of those samples are probably headed to Ian this year. Is that right?
Oh,
yeah, for losing in fantasy football.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I sucked. I didn't realize
that is right.
Mail it in that bad. And Troy's mic does sound great, Dustin. Yeah, he's looking new mic. He's a new man. It's looking good. All right, and you can find us at the Flannel Panel, at Flannel Panel Streams on Instagram. And until next time, stay buttoned up.
That's right.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, brothers.
Awesome. That was fun. Thank you, guys.